If you told me 2 years ago that a plastic stick from CVS would upend my entire life, I would have laughed and gone back to restocking bandages in the back of an ambulance. But that's where this all started. Not with heartbreak. Not with betrayal. With two little pink lines. I just finished a 12-hour shift running calls all over Bowling Green. Overdoses. A sprained ankle that turned out to be a full-on shin bone poking out, and an elderly woman who baked her life alert button into a pound cake. I was halfway through eating lukewarm spaghetti from a cracked Tupperware when my phone buzzed. Carly. One text. One photo. Pregnancy test. Two blazing pink lines like the gates of hell had opened. For context, Carly and I had been dating almost a year. We met at a bar where she was complaining loudly about men who order mojitos. I naturally had just ordered a mojito. It turned into a joke, then a drink, then 6 months later, she was leaving face wash in my bathroom and calling my dog our boy. It wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. We just merged. She was soft-spoken most of the time, except when she was annoyed, and then she turned into a shade-throwing champion. She worked at a local spa front desk. Always had stories about weird clients. She had this energy, kind of like she'd seen too much reality TV and was low-key waiting for life to become a confession booth. So yeah, when I saw that test, I freaked a little. Not because I didn't care, because I did. Probably more than I should have. It's just that I grew up with an empty chair at every birthday. My dad bounced before I was born. Mom raised me solo with a nurse's salary and hard-won grit. I swore if I ever got the call, I wouldn't run. I called Carly right away. No answer. I texted, "Is this real?" 5 minutes passed. 10. Then she replied, "Yeah, I didn't plan this, but maybe it's meant to be." Meant to be. Those words felt like a weight dropping onto my chest. I reread that text 30 times in a gas station parking lot. Not sure if I was about to cry or buy 4 lottery tickets and pray for a financial miracle. We had the talk that night. Carly curled up on the couch, hoodie over her knees, eyes swollen like she'd cried already. I asked what she wanted. She said she was scared. Me too. But we agreed to do it together. She moved in officially, we merged bank accounts for baby expenses, and I picked up every double shift I could get. I even started taking private EMT gigs on the weekends, backstage med staff for local festivals and rodeos. Yeah, real glamorous. But diapers don't buy themselves. The thing about trying to do the right thing is, you don't usually realize you're walking into a trap until the door clicks shut behind you. At the time, I thought we were building a future. Turns out I was just furnishing someone else's. Our apartment was never meant for a family. It was a 3rd-floor walk-up above a pawn shop that always smelled faintly like wet carpet and vape juice. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and if you turned on the microwave and the AC at the same time, the whole place blew a fuse. But we made it work. Carly cleared out her makeup corner to make space for a changing table. I built a crib badly. It wobbled for a week until I realized I'd used 2 left-side panels. We painted one wall a pale yellow because Carly said it was gender-neutral but emotionally warm. Whatever that means. She ordered a little mobile with stars and moons off Etsy. Said it felt cosmic. I just nodded and handed her my debit card. I was exhausted all the time. My uniform smelled like bleach and diesel and sometimes fear. There's this strange pressure when you know you're about to become a dad. Every siren made me wonder if I'd still be around to see my kid grow up. Every time I treated some old guy clutching his chest, I thought, will that be me one day? And will my kid be the one calling 911? Carly, for her part, went into full nesting mode. She joined 3 pregnancy Facebook groups and started comparing stroller brands like it was the stock market. Some nights I'd come home to find her crying at a YouTube birth vlog and demanding to know if we had enough lanolin cream. I didn't even know what that was. I just said, "I'll get more." I didn't always get it right. There were arguments. Hormones, stress, my long hours, her anxiety. It all piled up. One time I got home and she was sitting in the dark, crying because the baby hadn't kicked that day and she was convinced something was wrong. I offered to take her to the ER. but she snapped that I wasn't taking her seriously enough. I went and grabbed my stethoscope and listened to her stomach right there on the floor. We both cried a little when I found the heartbeat. We had baby name fights too. I liked short, solid names: Jude, Miles, Theo. She liked names with syllables and flair. She finally won with Marley. Said it had spirit. I didn't argue. Not because I loved it, but because I was too tired to push back. And honestly, I liked seeing her happy. The closer we got to the due date, the more I clung to that. The image of us in this crappy little apartment rocking a baby to sleep in the soft glow of that yellow wall. But there was something else too. A distance I couldn't quite name. Her phone was always face down. She started taking it into the bathroom, into the kitchen, even to get the mail. When I asked who she was texting so much, she'd shrug and say, Kara. Or my mom. Or God, can't I have a second to myself? I let it go. I told myself it was just hormones. Stress. Maybe I was overreacting. That's the thing about trust. You don't notice how brittle it's become until it finally snaps. But back then, I still believed we were doing this together. I was building a life. I didn't know she was building an exit. Marley was born on a Tuesday. It was raining, one of those steady, cold Kentucky drizzles that soaks through your shoes and turns every street into a slip hazard. I remember because I almost wiped out sprinting from the ambulance bay when Carly texted, "It's time." I wasn't even supposed to be on duty. I'd been covering someone's shift. But I peeled off my reflective vest, left the rig with my partner, shout out to Greg, the real MVP, and broke at least 3 traffic laws getting to Western Medical. By the time I got there, Carly was already in the delivery suite, face slick with sweat, breathing through a contraction that made her whole body shake. I rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. She looked up at me like she didn't fully register who I was. "You came," she whispered. I said I would, I said. Labor lasted 12 hours. I held her hand through most of it. She crushed my fingers so hard I thought she might have cracked a knuckle. She screamed at me twice, once for breathing too loud, once because I brought her ice chips in the wrong cup. But I stayed. I stayed when the epidural didn't work at first. I stayed when she sobbed and told me she couldn't do it. I told her she could. And then there she was. Marley. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. She didn't cry at first. Just blinked, squirmed, and looked deeply unimpressed with the world. When she finally let out that first squeal, Carly cried. I did too, though I tried to hide it behind my mask. Holding her, I felt split open. Like something ancient had cracked inside me. Like I was no longer just a guy trying to hold his life together. I was somebody's father. I didn't think about work. Or money. Or the fact that my back was screaming after a double shift. I just stared at her, completely in awe of this tiny human who somehow looked like both of us and none of us at once. The first 48 hours were a blur. Nurses came in and out. Forms were signed. I filled out the birth certificate paperwork, carefully printing my name in the father box. I remember Carly hesitating when I handed it to her. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said too quickly. Just tired. She kissed my cheek and thanked me for everything. Said she didn't know how she would have done it without me. I believed her. Back home, I turned the nursery corner into a shrine. I laid Marley's blanket across the crib like it was holy. Carly spent most of her time sleeping. Said she was in pain, that the stitches were awful, that she needed quiet. I got it. I didn't push. 3 days in, she told me she was going to stay with her mom just for a week or 2 to recover better. Said she needed space. Familiar smells. Her own bathrobe. I offered to drive her. She said no, her mom was coming. When they pulled out of the parking lot, Marley strapped in the back seat, Carly waved once. I never saw either of them again. At first, I didn't panic. I mean, people need space after childbirth, right? Emotions are raw. Bodies are wrecked. I figured Carly just needed some breathing room. A different mattress. Her mom's cooking. I texted her the next morning. How's Marley? You sleeping at all? No response. That evening. Need me to drop anything off? Diapers, wipes, food? Nothing. By the end of the second day, I was standing in the kitchen holding a bottle warmer I hadn't even unboxed yet, wondering if I'd said something wrong. Maybe I'd pushed too hard. Maybe I hadn't helped enough during labor. I kept replaying everything, the tone of her voice, the way she looked at me when I filled out the birth certificate. Like she wanted to say something but couldn't. I called. Straight to voicemail. I tried her mom next. I'd only met the woman 3 times, and 2 of those involved passive-aggressive questions about my long work hours. But still, I was polite. Calm. Hey, this is Devin. Just checking on Carly and the baby. Can you let her know I called? No reply. No text. No return call. I drove by her mom's house 2 days later. No car in the driveway. Lights off. Curtains drawn like it was abandoned. I didn't knock. Something about it made my chest tighten, like I wasn't just being avoided. I was being erased. That night, I opened Facebook. Carly hadn't posted in months. But someone tagged her. A baby photo. It was Marley, wrapped in a different blanket than the one I'd picked out, being held by a man I didn't recognize. Not a relative. Not a friend. Some guy with a sleeve tattoo and that smug, open-mouthed smile you only see in engagement photos or MLM profiles. The caption read, "My little family. So blessed." I didn't breathe for a full minute. Just stared at the screen. I clicked his profile. Private. His name was Chadby. From Elizabethtown. Worked at a tire shop. Mutual friends with one of Carly's old coworkers. My hands were shaking. I refreshed the page. The post had comments. Beautiful. She looks just like you, Chad. Such a good dad already. Dad. Dad? I sent Carly a message. Who is this? Where are you? Why is he holding my daughter? It wouldn't send. Blocked. Instagram, blocked. WhatsApp, blocked. Even Spotify, who the hell blocks someone on Spotify? I sat there in the dark for hours, scrolling through every trace of her digital life. It was like she'd peeled me off like a sticker and replaced me with someone else in her personal scrapbook. I wasn't mad yet. I was confused. Lost. Grieving something I couldn't even name. I wasn't sure what was worse, losing my daughter or realizing she might never have been mine at all. After that night, I stopped sleeping. Not in a poetic, heartbroken way. I mean literally, my body refused. I'd lie down and my mind would go sprinting into dark corners. I kept hearing Carly's voice in the delivery room, whispering, "You came." I kept seeing Marley's tiny face wrapped in a blanket I hadn't picked, held by a stranger I hadn't met, posted to a page I couldn't see anymore. The next day, I showed up at work looking like I'd crawled out of a ditch. Greg, my EMT partner, took one look at me and said, "Bro, either you're haunted or you need a new pillow." I told him Carly left, that she took the baby and vanished. He stopped joking after that. The weird part? Nobody had any advice. Not even the older guys with ex-wives and custody stories. Because when you're not married in Kentucky and the baby's name goes on the birth certificate but you haven't taken a paternity test, you're skating on legal eggshells. Under Kentucky law, if you're not married to the mother, you have no automatic rights to the child even if your name's on the certificate. You've got to establish paternity legally through a court process. And if the mother decides to vanish, you're screwed unless you lawyer up, which is exactly what I did. Her name was Nadine Morris, family law attorney, tough as nails, with the vibe of someone who'd sued her own dentist just for fun. I found her after a colleague slipped me her number with a whispered she gets results. I showed up with a folder full of receipts. Diapers. Ultrasound bills. A printout of the Etsy mobile. The hospital registration form. A photo of the birth certificate where I printed my name like a proud idiot. "I just want to know if she's mine," I said. Nadine didn't blink. "You're not on the putative father registry." "What's that?" She leaned back in her chair. "It's a system where unwed fathers can claim legal interest in a child before or after birth. If you're not in it and she wants to shut you out, she can." "So what do I do now?" "Petition the court. Demand a paternity test. If the child's yours, you can file for custody or visitation. If she's not," Nadine paused, "you're off the hook for everything. Child support, legal rights, all of it." The way she said everything chilled me. I signed the forms, paid the retainer, and 2 weeks later I got the call. Paternity results were in. I stood in the middle of a Walgreens parking lot, engine running, when Nadine gave me the number. 0%, she said. "She's not yours, Devin." Just like that. No ceremony. No big reveal. Just math. 0%. Not my blood. Not my child. Not my daughter. I don't remember driving home. I think I sat in the car for an hour, listening to the radio static, trying to breathe. It's a strange kind of grief, knowing you're mourning something that was never actually yours. Like a house you built on land someone else owned. But that night, sitting alone in a nursery that no longer had a purpose, I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I opened my laptop and made a list. Because if Carly thought she'd erased me with a block button and a fresh boyfriend, she was about to learn something important. I don't fight loud, but I do fight long. Grief is funny. Not haha funny, twisted funny. It doesn't come in stages. It comes in loops. 1 minute, you're numb. The next, you're halfway through folding a baby onesie before remembering there's no baby to put it on. I stared at Marley's crib that night and felt like a ghost haunting my own apartment. But I didn't burn the place down. I didn't drink. I didn't rage post. I did something way less dramatic but way more permanent. I bought a domain name. $8. Fatherbyfraud.com. No idea what I was going to do with it yet. I just knew I needed somewhere to put the truth. Not just my truth either. See, during all those sleepless nights between hospital shifts, I started Googling. And what I found made my stomach turn. There were hundreds, thousands of men across the U.S. in the same situation. Guys who found out after years, sometimes decades, that the kid they'd raised wasn't theirs. Men paying court-ordered support for children they had no biological link to. Guys who were forced to keep paying even after a paternity test proved they weren't the father because the law in their state said it was in the best interest of the child. It was like falling into a pit with no bottom. In some states, California, Michigan, and even parts of Kentucky, once you've signed a birth certificate and acted as a father, the court can rule you're the legal dad, even if biology says otherwise. You become a financial guardian of a lie. There's a word for it, paternity fraud. No one talks about it. The system doesn't even want to acknowledge it. You bring it up and people start making jokes about Maury Povich and you are not the father. They think it's trash TV drama, not something that wrecks lives in slow motion. So I started writing. First it was just a journal entry. My story, plain and raw. The night Carly showed me the test. The night she left. The court paperwork. The number, 0%. Then I wrote about others. I pulled anonymized court cases. Newspaper clippings. Reddit threads. I didn't name names. I wasn't looking to start a witch hunt. I wanted the pattern to emerge. I wanted people to see how often this happened and how silent the response was. I called it the Wall of Forgotten Fathers. The posts weren't pretty. They were jagged, tired, honest. No sponsors, no ads. Just pain turned into paragraphs. I linked resources where I could. Put together a state-by-state guide for registering paternity, contesting child support, and what to do before you sign your rights away with good intentions. At first, traffic was low. A couple dozen views. Then 100. Then someone shared it in a father's rights subreddit. Then a retired family attorney from Indiana emailed me and said this site should be required reading for every high school senior. I didn't feel proud. I felt steady, like I'd found a place to stand. Carly hadn't just betrayed me. She'd erased my future, rewrote the story of my daughter and handed it to someone else. But I could still write something she couldn't delete. And I wasn't done. Not even close. The internet didn't explode overnight. This wasn't some influencer drama or a thread that hit the front page in 2 hours. It was slower than that. Quiet. Like roots growing under a cracked sidewalk. You don't notice at first until the concrete buckles. 2 months after launching the site, I got an email from a guy named Ricky in Toledo. Subject line, your story is mine. He wrote 5 paragraphs. Said he found out 2 weeks after his daughter's 6th birthday that he wasn't the father. Took a DNA test in secret. His ex had accidentally left her texts open. The guy she'd cheated with had been helping pay for soccer gear the whole time. Ricky had been court-ordered to keep paying support. His lawyer called it emotional continuity for the child. His response? So I'm basically an emotional ATM now? He thanked me for the site. Said it made him feel less insane. After that, the stories started coming in a few times a week. Men from Mississippi, Arizona, Pennsylvania, blue-collar, white-collar, some with custody, some erased entirely. Most of them had never told anyone. They found the site through search terms like paternity test after birth legal? Child not mine, what now? Can I sue for fraud, Kentucky? They were desperate, isolated, and furious, but more than anything, they were ashamed. Like it was their fault. Like they were the ones who should have known better. That shame? It was rotting them from the inside. So I kept writing. I started a series called Fathers You Forgot, anonymous entries based on the emails I received, lightly edited for clarity. I changed names, dates, locations. But the bones were real. One man raised a boy for 14 years before finding out his ex had faked a birth control prescription. Another man discovered the truth at his wedding when a groomsman got drunk and spilled everything. The stories weren't sensational. They were quietly devastating. And that's what made them land harder. Then, one day, a small parenting podcast out of North Carolina asked if I'd do a phone interview. I said yes on the condition they didn't use my last name. They didn't. I spoke for an hour about Kentucky's lack of automatic paternity testing at birth, the putative father registry, and how most guys, especially working-class men, don't even know the legal system can lock them into parenthood without any blood ties. I finished by saying there's no refund policy on fatherhood. And there damn well should be when fraud is involved. 2 days later, traffic to the site tripled. Emails turned into calls. A family court judge, a sitting judge, left a comment on a post. Systemic issue. Thank you for your work. Reform is overdue. That was the moment I realized something. Carly didn't just ghost me. She lit a fuse. She thought she was walking away clean. But she gave me a cause. And now that cause was moving. Quietly. Steadily. Right toward her. The first time Carly reached out again, it wasn't through a phone call or a knock on the door. It came as a screenshot. My buddy Marcus, same guy who DJ'd our awkward gender reveal party, texted me a blurry image from Facebook Messenger. It was a group chat I hadn't been part of in months. Carly had posted a long-winded paragraph in a private mom group. Just found out my ex has been writing about me online and sharing our personal business. He's making me sound like some manipulative liar when I was just trying to protect my baby. Some of these things could damage my reputation and my family. Can anyone help me figure out if this is defamation? I stared at it for a second. Reputation? Family? She wasn't even talking about Marley at this point. She was talking about Chad, tire guy. The one who apparently stepped up like I'd somehow stepped down. I hadn't mentioned her name. Not once. I'd never uploaded photos. I even changed key details in my original story, dates, hospital names, Carly's job title. I was careful. Not for her sake, but to protect the legitimacy of what I was building. But now she knew. A few days later, a burner email landed in the site's contact inbox, cease and desist. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was from someone claiming to be one, using a Gmail address and an aggressive tone. My client has discovered you are posting libelous, false claims about her on a public website. We demand the immediate removal of all content referencing her and her child, or we will pursue legal action. I forwarded it to Nadine, my lawyer. She called me laughing. Unless she wants to prove her own fraud in court, she doesn't have a leg to stand on, Nadine said. Let her file something. We'll make discovery a nightmare. A week passed. No actual legal filing. Just more whispers. Someone from Carly's hometown messaged the site anonymously. Pretty sure I know the woman you're talking about. She's claiming her ex went psycho and made the whole thing up. But word is her new boyfriend just found out about the paternity test too. He's not thrilled. That caught my attention. Chad. See, here's the thing about lies, they don't crumble all at once. They buckle at the edges. Quietly, and then suddenly the whole foundation drops out from under them. From what I gathered, thanks to an old coworker of Carly's who hated her enough to vent over DMs, Chad had no idea she'd been in contact with a lawyer about paternity. She'd told him I bailed, that I was a flake, that I couldn't handle being a dad. But when he found Carly crying in the kitchen over her phone one night, he took a peek. He saw the DNA results in her email. 0%. The same number that had cracked my world open. Apparently, he flipped, left the apartment that night, took his Xbox and one of the baby monitors. Carly posted a vague breakup status the next day. People change. You never really know who someone is. But I'll always fight for what matters. I didn't respond. Didn't comment. Didn't even smile. But deep down, I knew. The house she built on lies had started to fall. And I hadn't even touched it. It was around this time, right after Chad's quiet exit, that the real ripple effect began. The blog was no longer just a therapy project or a fire hose for rage I didn't know where to aim. It had grown legs. People were talking. A family law reform group in Texas emailed me and asked to repost one of my entries. A mid-sized news site from Ohio linked to the Wall of Forgotten Fathers series in a piece titled, When the System Fathers the Wrong Man. But the moment that floored me came in the form of a press release from Kentucky State Representative Angela Branner, a name I'd only vaguely recognized from campaign signs near the freeway. She introduced a proposal, the Fair Fatherhood Act. The bill included mandatory, state-funded paternity testing at birth administered alongside the standard newborn screenings. It also outlined the creation of a digital putative father registry so no man would ever again be legally declared a parent without his consent or knowledge. Her office cited rising awareness from advocacy groups and real-world case studies shared through public platforms. One of those footnotes? My blog. Not my name, not publicly. But I knew. I stared at the PDF on my phone in the break room at work, stunned. Someone had taken all this grief, all this rotting silence, and turned it into policy. Greg came in while I was still sitting there, holding my phone like it might combust. "You good, man?" "I think something actually changed," I said. "Like, really changed?" He clapped me on the shoulder. "Maybe it's about time." I wish I could tell you I stood up and felt proud. But honestly, I felt tired. Like I just finished digging a grave and realized I was still holding the shovel. Meanwhile, Carly had gone fully quiet online. No posts, no status updates, no inspirational quotes about growth or healing. Mutual friends said she was laying low, which in mom group speak is code for people finally saw through her. Then came the kicker. I got another message through the blog's contact form. Subject line, "You should know what she's saying." It was from Kara, Carly's old friend who'd once borrowed our air mattress and never returned it. She'd always been the type to play both sides, but apparently she'd reached her breaking point. She attached screenshots. Group chats. Carly had been spinning a new story. He never cared about Marley. He was just embarrassed he couldn't have kids. That's why he made the blog. To punish me. He's obsessed. Obsessed. Not angry. Not hurt. Obsessed. Like I'd turned into some bitter, unhinged man scribbling manifestos on a wall. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because Carly had already overplayed her hand. A week later, Nadine called me. "You've got a meeting request." "With who?" "Angela Branner's office. They want you to speak, testify, actually. In support of the bill." My throat went dry. "Testify?" "Don't worry," she said. "No names. They'll let you tell your story as DR, they just want the human side of it." I told her I'd think about it. I hung up the phone and stared out the window, watching a kid ride by on a busted scooter. I thought revenge would feel loud, explosive, but what it really felt like was being heard. And for the first time since Carly disappeared with that baby, I wasn't invisible anymore. The hearing room in Frankfurt wasn't what I expected. I'd pictured something grand, mahogany walls, old men in powdered wigs, maybe a courtroom echo. Instead, it looked like a classroom with better lighting. Folded nameplates, cheap water pitchers, coughing, paper shuffling, bureaucracy in all its beige glory. Representative Angela Branner greeted me outside. She was shorter than I imagined, hair pulled back tight, sharp eyes like she saw right through excuses. She thanked me for coming. Said my writing had helped her staff understand just how widespread and hidden paternity fraud really was. "You don't need to say everything," she told me quietly. "Just say what you lived." I nodded, gripping the note card in my pocket like it might fall out of my chest. They called me up second. I sat at the witness table, mic in front of me, heart thudding so loud I could barely hear the chair squeak beneath me. No cameras. Just faces. Some bored. Some skeptical. A few tired men in state-issue suits who looked like they hadn't smiled since dial-up. I introduced myself as DR and said I was a paramedic from Warren County. I told them I was once listed on a birth certificate. I told them I paid for prenatal vitamins and a nursery. I told them I filled out the father's section in black ink with a steady hand, not knowing I was signing away my rights and responsibilities without even a test to back it up. I paused, let the silence stretch. Then I said something I hadn't planned to. I never got to be a dad. Not really. But I was expected to pay like one. That kind of mistake shouldn't come with a lifelong price tag. A few heads lifted. One guy with a Veterans Affairs pin on his lapel looked at me like he just remembered someone. I mentioned my site briefly. Not the name. Just the concept. The stories, the silence, the pattern. I asked them to imagine finding out the child you've loved, named, fed, rocked to sleep was someone else's secret. And then imagine being told to keep paying anyway because it's in the best interest of the child. Who's looking out, I asked, for the best interest of the man? I finished and stepped down. My hands were shaking as I grabbed a cup of water, barely able to get the lid off. Branner's staffer gave me a small nod. "You did good," she whispered. Outside, in the parking lot, it was raining. Again. Of course. There's something about Kentucky weather that likes to put an exclamation mark on a moment. I got in my car, stared at the windshield wipers for a long minute, and just let the quiet settle in. I hadn't planned this. I didn't want to be a voice or an advocate. I just wanted peace. Some version of justice. A world where what happened to me couldn't happen again. I never saw Carly again. Never got another message. Last I heard, through Marcus, she moved to Nashville. Word is she's working front desk at a different spa. Single mom again. Posting quotes about self-love and cutting toxic energy. I didn't reply. I didn't gloat. Because that's not what this was anymore. Revenge was the first part. But what came after, that was clarity. 1 year later, the Fair Fatherhood Act passed committee review. It's still making its way through the process. But people are watching now. Talking. Arguing. And when that law passes, because I believe it will, I'll be able to tell myself one simple truth. I didn't get my daughter. But maybe I helped save someone else's. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.